actually. Uh, so we should be able to finish in 3-4 weeks. But see, the main goal is, right, are we really following the message of Bhagavad Gita? Are we making an effort to change ourselves or following the words of Krishna? So that's the bottom line. If we are able to do that, then all the time what we have spent studying Bhagavad Gita is going to have a real impact in our life. So, chapter 18, as we know, is a summary of all the chapters, all the text which Krishna had covered in the previous chapters. It starts with the Arjuna's inquiry that what is sannyasa and what is tyaga, because chapter 1, it was Arjuna wanted to renounce, and then Krishna said no. And then when in chapter 17, Krishna starts talking about that all the things are impacted by the three modes. Now Arjuna comes back to question that there must have been some misunderstanding, and that's where in his approach initially when he was thinking, he know that he already knows by this time that whatever he was thinking renouncing was not correct, because he has got the Krishna has taken him from the karma yoga to jnana yoga, like bhakti yoga, and then he also went ahead in the detail of the jnana yoga, so and the stanga yoga. So Krishna has provided him all the yoga system. He has done the some of the chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, where he talks about man mana madbad bhakto, right? Like all my devotee, my true devotee, they're always remembering Krishna, and they always converse about Krishna. So that's the definition of the pure devotee. So Krishna has gone all about that. Then chapter 17, because chapter 13 to chapter 18 is considered to be Jnana Yoga, but as we understand, right, it's not that it only talks about that particular kind of a yoga. What it really means, there's more emphasis on those subjects. Otherwise, it's permeate, like it's the Krishna doesn't talk that, okay, I'm going to talk about the Jnana Yoga, now I'm going to talk about Bhakti Yoga. But the topics pertaining during those discussions uh, is mainly about either Bhakti Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga, right? So the last six chapter is mainly about the Jnana Yoga section, but chapter 18 is the conclusion. It's just doing the summary of everything. So connection is chapter 17. Krishna is talking about that how each of the things, whether it's a charity or austerity, everything is impacted by the three modes. And then now with the Arjuna's inquiry, Krishna goes into the sannyas and tyag and says how even the renunciation is impacted by the three modes. And then Krishna goes there, he explains that. Then next he talks about the five factor of work, and the five factor of works is adhisthanam, karta, karanam, chesta, and devam. So these are things we have spent quite a number of time understanding how deva is such an important factor, right? And the body and the senses, these are all the byproduct of our karma, right? That's how we have got it, right? It's not so. So again, so those things have been provided by Krishna. Now we as a doer, right, we can desire, and then we can make an effort. So those are some of the things which we do control. Okay. But so we need to keep trying, uh, whatever the work is, wha- the through the varna, whatever the work is prescribed for us, we have to do that work. It's not that we stop doing work, but at the same time we should be aware that deva plays a very important role. Okay. And once we understand it, then we are not, if let's say whether the work which we are doing is getting to the result or not getting to the desired result, what we are expecting is, it won't be a source of misery. Rather, it will be a purificatory process. It will allow us to see through the lens of Krishna that we are only one part of the game plan, and we did all the things. If the result comes, that is for Krishna. If the result didn't come, then that is also Krishna's desire and what we can learn from it. Okay, then the doer and non-doer mentality. So those are things, right? We talked about. Then the modes control all activities and all beings. So here many things were talked about, right? We started with the motivation and action, right? The five factor can be like what is the motivation and the action, and then within the action, then we talked about the work and the worker and the knowledge, right? Intelligence, determination, and happiness. So that we have already covered in the three different all three different modes. Then last class, we started with the Varnashrama system. That how the four social orders. Again, this is a summary, right? Chaturvarna Maya Shreshtam, right? This is then chapter 4. Krishna has introduced that topic. That how we all like this four varnas and four ashramas has been created. It's a valid Vedic system for our own elevation. But what has happened? Why the Varnashrama system is so not liked by the modern people? Because some people converted the division based on varna to the birth, right? So so janma, like so they are doing the division based on janma, and that's where the challenge happens. So you can say that um, uh, Vedic Varnashrama. So the thing which people talked about, that's not a Vedic Varnashrama. That's the material Varnashrama, and that's the caste system. But the Vedic Varnashrama is not a caste system. It is based on our socio-physical nature that um, we we can will have the inclination to do some kind of a work versus the others. Okay. Uh, So we covered up to 45th verse, but we will just do a quick review of those the five verses, and then we will go over the 6, 7, and 8. Okay. So text 41, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra are distinguished by the qualities born of their own nature in accordance with the material modes. So these varnas are bonds of the material modes. Then peacefulness, then it's talking about the quality of the brahmana. So peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance. So these are all the different qualities of a brahmana. And then 43, heroism, it talks about the qualities of the kshatriya. And then 44 talks about the qualities of the Vaishya and the Sudra. So in three verses, Krishna covers, again in the summary, he covers how the Varnas are has been divided, right? So it is based on the kind of work one does. And then the text 60:45 is talking about by following his quality of work, every man can become perfect. So this is such a it's a verse which needs little re-emphasis. It has a pretty significant impact in understanding our spiritual growth. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur um, talks quite a bit about it, and he uses the term Vedic Varna, um, which is what has been divided by Krishna, and he differentiated from the Asuric Varnashrama. So Asuric Varnashrama, so he which is today people call the caste system, right? So he, because there has to be some distinguishing that hey, what we are talking about, the varna ashrama, that's not a Vedic varna ashrama, that's a Asuric varna ashrama. Because, and why is Asuric? Because it's not based on the shastras, it does the exploitation. So so there is a clear distinction which Bhakti Vinod Thakur does. And who is Bhakti Vinod Thakur? Does anybody knows?
He's a guru of Prabhupada.
Is guru of a guru, means yeah. So he comes in the disciplic succession. So guru of Prabhupada is Bhakti Siddhant. Okay, and the Bhakti Vinod Thakur is the father of Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur. Okay, so that's their relationship. So Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur is Prabhupada's guru, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur is father of Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur. Uh, so Bhakti Vinod Thakur has done a lot for the Gaudiya Vaishnavism parampara, because all the system were corrupted. The books were lost. He was able to come and recover a lot of those things, and he wrote hundreds plus books and the commentary while he was still the barrister in the British government. And he was so, his consciousness was so clear that he can finish hundreds of cases within 2 to 3 hours. And it's not an exaggeration. That's how it is documented, that the British government, they built a special train line to his house so that he doesn't spend time um, going to the court, right? So the train, he can just catch the train and go there, and then he can go and clear the. He was so much he was so much respected. Okay, so that's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So from his commentary, he talks about the Asuric Varnashrama compares with the Vedic Varnashrama. Krishna doesn't define this term, so I'm trying to be clear with you. And then he also talks about the Devi Varnashrama. This term Prabhupada uses quite a bit. Devi Varnashrama, just understand that as a devotee practitioner, Varnashrama is not the part of uh, sp- spiritual realm. Okay, it is within the material realm. Varnashrama is within the material realm, but it helps one to elevate towards the mode of goodness. Okay, and that becomes very conducive for practicing bhakti. So this is a topic I have discussed before, but I just want to repeat. Now, Devi Varnashrama is, while we as the practitioner, devotee practitioner, who are practicing the bhakti yoga system, it's not that whimsically we say that, oh, we don't need to follow the varnashrama, and anything is a varnashrama is just no, we don't follow. No, that's not how we approach it. What we approach it, that anything prescribed in the varnashrama can be connected with Krishna. So if the Varnashrama says that one should must work using thinking about his Varna and Ashrama, and they should try to live in a uh, proper ashrama, like first brahmachari and then girastha and then vanaprastha and then sannyāsī. So all those things are important, but dovetail all those things in Krishna's service. So as a girastha, we dovetail our propensity as we are earning, we are taking care of our wife, children, thinking how they are related with Krishna, and that approach becomes Devi Varna, right? Devi Varna. We are linking the Varnashrama with the higher realm. Okay, so that's what we is it. So you'll hear this term being used by Prabhupada. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, now some of the practical tips. Um, So one thing which you would see by following his quality of work, every man can become perfect. In the next verse 46, what Krishna talks about, this is something we covered. By worship the Lord, who is the source of all being and who is all pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. So man can attain perfection through performing his own work. So even if I'm a Sudra, right, and most of us are Sudra because we are working for somebody. As per the definition, if I'm working for somebody and I'm being paid for, that's called a Sudra, right? And because I am a servant. So it's not that the Sudra is a bad or derogatory term. You're just understanding that that's what we are doing. Now, doesn't matter if one is a true Brahmana or a Sudra. If that's what our inclination is, then by doing that work, we can we can achieve perfection. And how? And the important part is, and this is where this becomes very practical. If we try to do someone else's work and we do it successfully, it will increase our pride. Oh, see, I did work. Okay, so let's say I, I'm not a doctor type, but I am a hard worker. I study. I become a doctor, and say that. See, people are saying that I'm not a doctor type, or I won't become a doctor. See, I became a good doctor, right? And that leads to pride, and that is not conducive for the progress. So that's the practical thing. Krishna is not talking about it. This is how Acharya explains it. That we when Krishna says that we should do our work, that's how it can be practically connected with how we understand. Okay, so whatever, so net is whatever the Lord has given us, we should be very thankful to His gift and use that gift to make progress in Krishna consciousness by connecting it with Krishna's service. Okay, we shouldn't compare ourselves with the other people, um, because that will lead to increasing our envy towards other people, jealousy about towards other people, that we look at them. Okay, so these are things which we, that's the reason why this verse is considered that we should pay little attention to it, even though it's a varnashrama. As a devotee practitioner, you'll see it's not a subject which get covered quite a bit, but nonetheless, it's an important aspect. Prabhupada wanted to establish the varnashrama system, um, for the masses, and his main goal was that that will make people conducive for progressing toward Krishna consciousness. Because otherwise, today the life is so much focused on the sense gratification that it becomes very hard to practice any Krishna consciousness. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita shows basically how to healthier picture of ourselves, right? How we are part and parcel of the Lord, how everything should be dovetail. Okay. Um, So things we feel comfortable. So here I've written things we feel comfortable doing and feel competent doing it. So this is something we need to focus on. Okay. So with that, let's move to verse 46. We already okay. This I suppose we had covered, right? Yeah, we had gone over the. Okay, we'll start from 47. Any question? All right. श्रेयांसवा धर्मो विगुणः विगुणः
श्रेयांस स्वधर्मो विगुणः
पराधर्मत स्व अनुष्ठितः
परधर्मास्त अनुष्ठितः तात
स्व- स्वभावानियतां कर्म
स्वभावनियतं कर्म
कुर्वान्नप्नोति किलिभिषम्.
कुर्वान्नाप्नोति किल किल्बिषम्.
It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So, just like animal, when they have, like, if the tiger is killing so many animals, so it's not that the tiger is getting so much of bad karma compared to a rabbit who is not who is only eating the grass, right? So because that's how the nature of the tiger is. Similarly, if our psychophysical nature is to do certain kind of a work, it won't lead to sinful reaction. Of course, if we are making if it is the work is performed as per the direction. Okay, if we are just making the changes, of course there will be sinful reaction. But if it is, that's what, let's say, so brahmana, for example, if brahmana is doing the sacrifice, and as a part of some of the sacrifice, there were animal needs to be sacrificed. In that case, the brahmana is not getting the sinful reaction for sacrificing the animal. Similarly, if the kshatriya is fighting a war and killing the people, that won't be considered a sinful reaction. Of course, this war is a dharmic war. It has to be dharmic war. I mean, it's not that people create the whimsically the war, right? And they say that, oh, I'm like, in that case, all these terrorists, right? They will say that, oh, we are doing the war, and we are not getting any sinful reaction. And that's how they turn the table, right? Using the scriptural injunction that it's okay to kill people. No, okay. Uh, So that's what this verse is talking about. So the duties of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra are prescribed according to their particular modes of nature. One should not imitate another's duty. A man who is by nature attracted to the kind of work done by Sudra should not artificially claim to be a Brahmana, although he may have been born into a Brahmana family. In this way, one should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. The important part is if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. A Kshatriya has to, like, we just covered, a Kshatriya has to be violent to kill his animals, and sometimes a Kshatriya has to tell lies for the sake of diplomacy. Such violence and duplicity accompany political affairs, but the Kshatriya is not supposed to give up his occupational duty and try to perform the duties of a Brahmana. So this is exactly what Arjuna was trying to do, which was not correct. So Arjuna was supposed to fight and protect the dharma and the weak and the women, right? So all those things, that was the true work for Arjuna. Okay? But the merchant should not think that because he is engaged in an occupation in which the telling of lies is compulsory, he should give up his profession and pursue the profession of a Brahmana. Again, for the Vaishya, sometimes if they are doing the business, they do lie. They are saying that, oh, I'm not making profit, or I'm making very less profit, even though they might be making quite a bit of profit. And that as the part of the occupation, that is okay. Right. So so now again, people can try to, if they start cheating in that, I just want to just make sure that there are always exception to the rule. If people are using that uh, propensity to lie to start cheat people, right, then that is not correct. You are making profit, and for that, if they have to some, like, it's simple lies, they are doing that, that's totally fine. But cheating is not a good thing. So that is not recommended. Whether one is Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra doesn't matter if he serves by his work the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the main thing is we need to learn to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that case, there it becomes a part of the akarma. In the third chapter, these matters have been clearly and elaborately explained. Every man should work for the purpose of yajna or for Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anything done for personal sense gratification is a cause of bondage. The conclusion is that everyone should be engaged according to the particular mode of nature he has acquired, and he should decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Supreme Lord. So two points are coming up very clearly. We have to work according to our psycho-physical nature, and then while we are working, we have to find a way to connect it with service of the Lord Krishna. Okay, so these are two things, and if we are doing that, then becomes the part of the Devi Varnashram. So now the question comes: does it raises a question? Let me ask: does it raises any question? See, one natural question which comes is how to know what is my psychophysical nature. Is that a valid question?
Yes, Prabhuji, I was about to ask.
Okay. So what is the answer, Prabhu? What you are thinking, like, while or anybody, like, does anybody have the answer? How to know what is my psychophysical nature?
We just know it.
Sorry, Anmol?
We just know it.
Richard?
We, I'm saying we just know it.
Oh, we just know it. Okay. And how we know it? Means just by observing our behavior pattern?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we kind
yeah.
of bump around in our lives and we figure it out. Like, we figure out what we like and what we
Hmm.
do not like, and like what we are good at and what we are. There is
Yeah,
some, of course, some discovery throughout our lives, but like, we know it more or less.
yeah. So in the Vedic times, in the Gurukul system, when the students used to go to Gurukul, their their astrological chart will be analyzed to understand what is their psychophysical nature. So if you, some of the folks who are little acquainted with the astrology, you will know that it comes with the gana, right? It says whether you are a Manusya gana or Rakshas gana or Devi gana, right? Has anybody heard these terms?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Right? Okay, so that's one way um, to start with, right? But then the second, what Anmol is telling, then we compare with what is my real inclination, right? Where I think that naturally I excel at, right? And I just not excel it, I feel satisfied doing that work. So those are the things together will complement each other and say that yes, that's my varna, right? And then the people who are our elders, who have observed us in the wild, and they can provide the third, like the independent point of view, so that can validate it. Okay, so and I have a uh, I have a website at the bottom. I'll show you. I'll share you. Or let me think. I had it open. It's called Varna Calculator. So you can look at it, Varna Vedic way. So like for example, um, if I look for my daughter, so 31/03/2007, and then even if you say put I don't know the time, okay, so most probably will know the time, and she's born in Bellevue, Washington. So it has the database, and you'll put I don't know the time, and you just say calculate. Uh, it does fairly okay job, I think. You can, so even if you like, so now you'll see, right, depending on the time, but here you say that for the whole day it was kshatriya and manushya, and in the night I know for sure my daughter was born in the morning, right? So even if I don't know the exact time, I know that her varna is kshatriya, so she has a kshatriya mentality, and gana is manushya. And so and I can see that my daughter, right? Like she will be very empathetic, and she cannot tolerate any injustice to anybody. Somebody said anything, I can see that, right? And she knowing this would be helpful to see what kind of job or the work would be more appropriate for her. And this gana, manushya gana, these are things get analyzed during the marriage, like when you do the matchmaking of the individuals with the husband and a wife, would be husband and would be wife, um, and that's out of the some number of 33 characteristic or 35, I don't know, something like that. It compares. Their gana is one of the factors. So like if somebody is a Rakshas Gana and the other is a Devi Gana, those matches are very difficult. And I know some couples, they have difficult times. They are living together, but of course they get in arguments all the time. So there is validity to it if used appropriately. Again, astrology is a valid science. It is not something which the devotee do it all the time, but for some of the things, like so there are for the astrology, there are two things: karma and swabhava. So astrological charts shows two things: based on my karma, what's going to happen to me. And then it also talks about the sabhava. So the karma path, once the devotee starts the devotional path with all sincerity, they Krishna takes care of the karma. Like so, he the all the karma is taken away, or you can put on hold, right? While the devotee is moving on the devotional path. Okay, and then Krishna, like still the misery and the happiness will continue, but those things are rewarded by Krishna. So Krishna is directly interjecting from the outside. It will seem that oh, karma is working, and that's where once I had talked about that how astrological the Mataji who does astrology by profession talked about that. She she when she started looking into the hand or the astrological chart of the people, she saw that there was not correlation based on what they were going through and what the chart was telling, and that was a clear indication that um, the karmas which was intended based on the astrological chart is not in effect. It is the Krishna's will. Okay, so the devotee should never think misery as the indicator that it's the karma. That can very well, if we are, and why I'm just trying to Be careful here. We shouldn't whimsically think that I have become a devotee if I'm not following. If like my faith is not firm, and I do the demigod worship, and sometimes I do the Kṛṣṇa. That is not a pure devotional service. That is the mixed devotional service. And the mixed devotional service, the karma angle is always there. But once I completely focus that I will be following the devotional path, even though it may be imperfect, I may have imperfection. Krishna is taking care of the happiness and the misery in our life. He gives the so-called misery for our own purification. He gives the happiness also for our purification. Both the things are for our purification. Okay. So this is the site you can look if you are interested, just to play around. Okay, so here's some of the notes I have put. Further that uh, we get purified by doing our own duty. And one of the example which is cited by some of the acharya, that each patient has to take their own medicine, and we should not be taking someone else's medicine because that medicine looks very nice, or it's fewer medicine, it's less it's more tastier medicine. So it's not that we go in. So whatever the medicine has been prescribed by the doctor, that's how we have to take the medicine, because that's what going to cure us. So accordingly, the varna and ashrama, the psychophysical nature which has been provided to us, that's what we have to use to do our work. Okay. Sometimes, again, the point is sometimes violence is required. So it's not that we say that our dharma says no violence. Sometimes it's required. In general, no violence. But when the time comes and the situation becomes grim, the violence, if and then the violence, and if the violence is required, one has to do the violence. Okay. And I already covered why practical angle. Proud when doing someone else's works, like I have done it, right? That makes people proud. 48. सहजम कर्मे कौन्तेय
सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय
सदोषम अपि न तजेत न तजते
सदोषम् अपि न त्यजेत्
सर्व सर्वारंभा हि दोषेण
सर्वारम्भा हि दोषेण
धूमेन ग्निर इव वर्तते.
धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः
Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. So every endeavor is covered by some fault. So any work which we do in this material world will have some fault associated. Just an example Krishna is giving, just as the fire is covered by smoke. Okay. So therefore one should, so that what in summary what Krishna is telling, therefore we should not give up the work born of our nature. Right? That's what Krishna is telling, even if such work is full of fault. For example, if somebody is doing a job of executioner, right? Like they have been given a job in the government jail to execute people, right? Or give them uh, the cyanide tablet or whatever to so that they can die, right? Or the injection, anything like that. And it's full of fault, right? But if that is something what has been given to that person, it has to be done. Okay. So in conditional life, all work is contaminated by the material modes of nature. Even if one is a brāhmaṇa, kṣatriya, or vaiśya, it's all contaminated. But we have to carry out our prescribed duty, for they are born of his own nature. A very nice example is given herein. Although fire is pure, still there is smoke. Yet smoke does not make the fire impure. If one prefers to give up the work of a Kshatriya and take up the occupation of a Brahmana, he is not assured that in the occupation of a Brahmana there are no unpleasant duties. One may then conclude that in the material world no one can be completely free from the contamination of material nature. One should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty in Krishna consciousness. That is the perfectional point. when a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupations are purified. When the results of work are purified, when connected with devotional service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self-realization. So let's reread it. Okay. On the surface, okay, it's a paragraph which Prabhupada has stated, means Krishna has stated and Prabhupada has stated, but then Prabhupada is giving the whole connection in simple words, right? So one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duties. So what he's telling, the first step is telling that we have to do our work, but what we have to do, we have to dovetail this work for the pleasure of Krishna. If we do that, that becomes the perfection of our work. Okay, if we do that, that becomes the perfection of our work, and that will, why it become perfection of work? Because that satisfies the Supreme Lord, and which means that any defect of that work gets automatically purified, because when it is connected with the Supreme Lord, then the material realm, the impact of the material realm, which is coming through the karmic bandhan, right? The punya or the papa, right? The sin and the piety, that gets eliminated by the Krishna's will. Okay? That's how the Vedic science is work. And when the result of work are purified, so the result of the work is get purified because it satisfied Krishna. The result of the work got purified, and it is for pleasing Krishna. If that happens, then it leads to our purification, the purification of our heart. And if it purifies our heart, then that leads to self-realization. Because we are not able to self-realize because our heart is contaminated. So once the purification happens, the self-realization happens, we move to the transcendental realm. So we are now beyond the material realm. Other further verses is going to talk further. So, but that's how the varnashrama is supposed to work. But in the varnashrama, what Prabhupada has added, the more emphasis on the devotional service. And varnashrama, by the way, it says that offer the work to Vishnu. So it's not that varnashrama is saying that you just work, right? It does say that the work the work should be done for the satisfaction of the Lord. Okay, so here I was giving put the example like car killing insects, right? When we are driving the car, there are so many insects which gets killed. But if we're driving the car for our pleasure, if I'm going to on a too many road trips and I'm just enjoying, I'm killing so many insects, I am getting karma for that. While one is driving the car to go to the temple, do the service, and they are doing the same thing. They may be driving, like for example, one some devotees go to drive 3 hours, 2 3 hours to get the temple has the farm near the Canada border where the cows are, our cows are, and so they go once a week to get the milk. So of course they are traveling once a week such a distance, so so many insects are getting killed, but they are doing the service to the Lord and to the devotees, so they are not getting karma. So it depends on the kind of work. Then I had given a summary here um, of the Varna and the Guna. So primarily Brahmanas, they are in the mode of goodness. Okay. So here what you'll see, what I have done, primary. So the first column is the primary and the second column is the secondary. So Brahmana, they primarily they are in mode of goodness. For the Kshatriya, primarily they are in the mode of passion, and the secondary they are in goodness. Okay, so primarily they are in a mode of passion. So that's their natural inclination. Okay. For Vaishya, primary is passion and secondary is also passion. The Sudra, it is the primary is ignorance and the secondary is passion. Okay, so that's the default inclination. But these things can be the inclination can be purified when we do a devotional service. The one can move from, even though they are doing it, doing the work as a kshatriya or as a vaishya, the default inclination, the my that oh when there's no sense gratification, right? When there's no sense gratification and I am thinking only for the pleasure of Lord, that becomes the goodness, or that becomes transcendental actually. Is whenever I'm thinking for the pleasure of the Lord, that's transcendental. That's beyond the modes. So here is the website which I talked about. So what is the learning? Krishna has created all of us as a special. We need to realize each other's speciality, admire it, and be grateful to the Lord for making us special and the gift He has given us. We need to focus on our self-development, and for that we need to know our psychophysical nature. So that is the very practical conclusion from the 8 verses in this section. Any question? Any thoughts? Okay, so now next section, we are moving to the next section. So see how the sections are going, right? Initially, Krishna talks about the summary of the karma yoga system. Then he talks about the jnana yoga, where he talks about how the 3 modes are acting. Okay. Then he brings the varnashrama, that because naturally the question after Arjuna thinks that, oh, everything is impacted by the 3 modes, then how do I become perfect, right? That's where Krishna introduces the varnashrama system. Oh, they have the varnashrama system, and that's the reason why it has been designed for. But then the next is, after that what? So varnashrama system is supposed to do the gradual elevation and bring people to the Brahman platform. And this is the confidential knowledge. In a word, what the chapter 7 was a confidential knowledge, chapter 8 was more confidential, and chapter 9 was most confidential. So you can say it is like a this particular section is the summary of the confidential knowledge. So 49 to 53 will talk about the perfect stage of a sannyasa and the process of attaining Brahman, and 54 and 55 talks about from Brahma Bhuta stage to Bhakti. So while one so Brahma Bhuta means while we are in this material world, from there we elevate our to the Brahman platform. But then from there moving to bhakti. So bhakti is, and this will become very clear when we read these verses, that bhakti is even beyond the Brahman platform. And this we have discussed in the earlier chapter, but Krishna will further conclude it here or summarize it here. So moving to verse 49. Ashakta buddhi sarvatra
असक्त बुद्धिः सर्वत्र
chitatma vigyata spraha nashkarmya siddhim parma sannyasena diggachati.
सन्यासेन धिगच्छति.
So here there emphasis on 3 things you'll see. Word looks let's go over the word by word here. Ashakta buddhi. So here 3 words I told, right? Having unattached intelligence. So ashakta buddhi, having unattached intelligence. Then jit atma, having control of the mind. And the third word is vigata spraha, without material desire. So it talks about the intelligence, the mind, and the senses. 3 things. So it's very meaningful verse. So one who is self-controlled and unattached and who disregards all material enjoyment can obtain by practice of renunciation the highest perfect stage of freedom from reaction. So this is the Brahman stage where there is no reaction, akarma stage, right? And how to do that? Who is self-controlled and unattached. So using the intelligence to say that whatever action I'm doing, I should be unattached. So I'm using my intelligence, and then I'm telling my mind to control, right? And then not thinking about my self enjoyment by controlling the senses. if I'm doing, so then by practice of renunciation, so this is the renunciation practice, that this is not about me. I'm renouncing the result of my work. That will lead to the highest perfection stage of from freedom from reaction. So let's read the purport. Real renunciation means that one should always think himself part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore think that he has no right to enjoy the result of his work. So when we think we are part and parcel, then we know that we are servant and we shouldn't be enjoying the work. His work must be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord. So whatever we are doing for the Supreme, this is actually Krishna conscious. This is what is Krishna consciousness? Understanding that we are part of parcel of the Lord. If we are part and parcel of the Lord, then we are servant of the Lord. So anything, any endeavor we are doing for our master, which is Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. Very practical, very simple. By such a mentality, one is satisfied because he is actually acting for the Supreme. Thus, he is not attached to anything material. He becomes accustomed to not taking pleasure in anything beyond the transcendental happiness derived from the service of the Lord. So, see, the focus is service. Focus is service. And that's the reason. Like, if you see that if we really want to make progress in our life, we have to learn to serve the Lord. How we serve the Lord? We start taking the service which is directly or indirectly related with Krishna. Directly related with Krishna is, what are the service which are directly related with Krishna? Give me some example. What kind of, when we say service, what does it really mean?
Chanting,
Mm-hmm. Further?
other temple
cooking yoga.
services, Prabhuji.
Yes. So work which helps the devotee, right? Which helps uh, propagate the name of the Krishna and let people know about the Krishna's message, right? Because we are trying to bring other people closer to Krishna. That's where the prasadam, preaching, all those things. Our behavior, our relationship, right? Because we are representing Krishna. If my behavior is bad with the devotee or even the so-called non-devotee, because see what we say that we from the material realm sometimes we say devotee, non-devotee, but the other way to think is yet to be devotee. Everybody has a potential to become a devotee if they are treated well and they are given the opportunity to understand Krishna consciousness. Right? So all those things. So where we start, right? We start from the temple services. Uh, that's the first stage. Then we start focusing on ourselves, like our growth uh, in in terms of uh, focusing on our anarthas, what we have, our behavior with the other people, relationships, and slowly we'll see that our determination to serve the Lord will start growing. So it will go in a loop, and we'll make very quick progress toward the Krishna consciousness. Okay, the service. Okay, text 50. Siddhim prapto yatha brahma
सिद्धिं प्राप्तो यथा ब्रह्मा
tathapnoti nibodha me
तथाप्नोति निबोध मे
tamas
तथाप्नोति निबोध मे
samaseneva kaunteya
समासेनैव कौन्तेय
समासेनैव कौन्तेय
nishtha jnanasya ya para.
नित्यज्ञानस्य या परः
नित्यज्ञानस्य या परा
O son of Kunti, learn from me how one who has achieved this perfection can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, the stage of highest knowledge, by acting in the way I shall now by acting in the way I shall now summarize. So Krishna is going to say how one can reach the Brahman stage. Okay, so 51 to 53, three verses together. बुद्ध्या विशुद्धया युक्तो
बुद्ध्या विशुद्धाय युक्तो
धृत्यात्मा नियमे च
युज्यमानं
नित्यात्मानं नियम
सब शब्ददिन त्यक्तव्या
शब्दभिर्विषयां
शब्दादिशयास्त्यक्तव्या
रागाद्वेषु रागाद्वेषु vayudasya cha
रागद्वेषौ युद्धस्य च
viviktatsevi lagava ashi
विविक्तस्य
ya-
तद्वाशी
yata vakkaya manasah
तद्वाक्काय मानसः
ध्यान yoga paro nityam
ध्यानयोगपरो नित्यं
vairagyam samupashritah
वैराग्यं समुपाश्रितः
ahankaram balam darpam
अहङ्कारं बलं दर्पं
kamam krodham parigraham
कामं क्रोधं परिग्रहं
vimucha nirmamo santo
विमुच्य निर्ममः शान्तो
brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
ब्रह्मभूयाय कल्पते.
Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of his speech, who is always in trance and who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship, and peaceful. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self realization. So, these are the symptoms. Who are the people who get to the stage of self realization? So, and so if you carefully read it, Krishna is all the previous verse which we talked about, right, in this chapter. He's using it all, putting it together. So again, being purified. So we talked about purifying the intelligence, controlling the mind, right? And controlling the mind requires determination, right? And giving up the object of sense gratification. So that theme has been taken. And then of course being freed from attachment and hatred. So attachment and hatred, so so basically we have to do our work without attachment or hatred. It's not that I dislike that work so I don't do it, right? If we ought to do it, we are going to do it. It's a blessing for Krishna. And what it does, once somebody is doing this, one becomes practically aloof, right? Because they don't want to unnecessarily do the chit chat and thinking about the, because whenever we are doing in the social circle, there are a lot of we want to uh, enjoy, feel satisfied by talking about our accomplishment, other things. So there are so many things. So one becomes gambhir, and these are some of the quality which Krishna has talked about. So one, he thinks that I would rather live in a secluded place. And then what happens? Their eating becomes little. It's not about to um, enjoy. It is whatever is required for controlling the body. And then we have to control our body, mind, and power of his speech. And we Krishna has given how to what does anybody remember? What are some of the things when we speak? What are some of the characteristic which we should follow? The verse 14th verse we had talked about, right?
Truthfulness
Truthfulness, yes, it has to be truthful. Okay, next.
should not hurt others.
It shouldn't hurt other. Okay, it shouldn't aggravate others. Yes, it should
Non-violence.
be. Pardon me. Sorry. It is pleasant and it is beneficial. Okay, and then it should be in general talking about the Krishna. So pleasant, beneficial. So those are the things. So as the person is controlling his mind, body, and the power of speech, and so when one is doing that, automatically one is, his mind is, the person's mind is focused on the Lord, right? So he's becoming in trance, and automatically he's getting detached. The concept of the false ego starts diminishing. This is the last thing which diminishes. The false ego is the one which leaves at the very end, in the realm of all the anarthas what we have. Okay. And the false ego is very subtle. I talked about, right? Anytime we are pointing fingers to others, so that person didn't do the work, those are very likely that it is my false ego which is seeing through that, oh, I am better person than the other. Right. And that's the reason I'm looking at the fault into the other person's work. Right. So it becomes so false ego and false strength, everything, false strength. Oh, I'm so beautiful, and false, all those things, lust, anger, and the free from false proprietorship. So this work, this home belongs to me, this my wife belongs to me, children belongs to me. No, everything is property of Krishna. And then naturally person is peaceful, and such a person is then certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. You see how beautifully Krishna has summarized this. So when one is purified by intelligence, and how one will be purified? Removing the controllership mentality of the mind, not attached to the object of sense gratification. So similarly, just the things we just talked about. So I'll just skip but you can just exactly the highlighted thing. That's what we talked about, and that's what Prabhupada is talking about, right? And then he quotes Prabhupada's quotes the second chapter verse: a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like river into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So we have to, desire will keep coming, but am I getting disturbed by those desires? And that at certain point, then desire, those incessant flow of desire won't bother us. So 51 to 53 talks about negating all the things which needs to be controlled, which is mind, intelligence, and senses. So negating those things and replacing it with the right thing, then one will reach to Brahman platform. So there are, we are talking about the purified intelligence in, if you remember in the chapter 3, and where are the three places of lust? What are the three places of lust?
Heart, mind, and intelligence.
Yes, yes. So the mind, intelligence, yes. Residing place of lust or agent to get rid of lust. So, and the fourth stage of progress, I really like this. Um, forest. So initially, when we are trying to make the progress, initially we fail. We fail quite a lot, right? So we are failing, and then we don't know even if how I'm going to really make progress. I'm such a big failure, right? I'm trying to come to the classes. I have the inclination to go and do the service, but I'm missing the class because something comes, birthday party, my vacation plan, something comes up, and then I'm not going to the temple service, right? So it's a helpless failure. But then there's a struggle. The next stage is struggle and failure. So I'm struggling. I really want to attend the classes. I really want to do that. Even I miss the class, I'll go and let me hear the recording. So I'm trying to do that. But again, invariably, it's more than 50% of the times I'm not able to do that. But still, there's some success. This is struggle. Like there's a, so temptations are strong, very strong temptations are there. But I realize that they are temptations, and I also realize my weaknesses, and I'm fighting with that. So there's awareness. So struggle and failure. That's the next level. Then the struggle and success. So now the more than 50% I'm getting success. Still the temptation are there, but then my resolve and determination is getting stronger than those temptation most of the time. Not always. Sometimes temptation wins, but most of the times the determination is winning over those temptations. So that's the struggle and success. And then the last stage, effortless success. So and this is the real sannyasi, the real spiritual life, right? Where the no temptation really bothers anybody. So this is how we progress. So this is one way how our acharyas have described the progress, and how to measure it, right? So this is one one thing, is especially I'm pretty sure a lot of you, I know for sure, I focus a lot on anarthas. Anartha, which was not very visible to me before, now it becomes more visible to me. And it's always a struggle how to control those anarthas, how to um, make the determination stronger to deal with those anarthas, right? And those anarthas are coming due to the swabhava which have acquired in the so many millions of lifetime. And then this is the verse Tushyanticha Ramanticha. So these devotees who have who are focusing on the Krishna, they're always talking about the Krishna. Whenever they meet with the devotee, they talked about Krishna and not about the other things, the Prajalpa thing. Okay, so these are the things we talked about. In 14.26, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the mode of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So this is very similar to verse 14.26. So verse 54. So this is one of the famous words. Prabhupada quotes quite a bit. Brahma bhuta prashanna atma
Jamma bhuta
Brahma
parasannatma
na sochati na kankshati
Chachoti
na shocati na kamshati
tama sarveshu bhuteshu
Sarveshu
sama
Bhute
sarveshu bhuteshu
mad bhaktim labate param.
Bhaktim
madbhaktim labhate param.
One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. So, one who is thus transcendently situated. So, now this person has moved beyond. So, the Brahman, like, so it's going. The last verse was about the Brahman. So, now once when the Brahman, they are on the transcendental realm, right? They are beyond the material realm, basically the three modes. So one who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So see, focus. When the devotional service is coming, devotional service coming once person has achieve the Brahman platform. So this is the direct refutation of the Mayavad, who says that the Brahman is the supreme. Here, devotional service is following the Brahman platform. He's what Krishna is saying. He is equally disposed towards every living in that state. So he's equally disposed. He has come to the level of transcendent, right? And then the same time the same time he's showing he's fully joyful because that person is not lamenting or desiring anything. When all those three things are happening in that state, this person can practice pure devotional service unto me. Okay, so this is in a way is a gradual process which Krishna talks about here. That how by dovetailing all the my work, um, using my intelligence, using the jnāna-yoga, right? Using connecting my karma with the Lord, how I can elevate myself and come to the level of Brahman, and from there, then I practice bhakti. In the later chapter, we'll see he's going to talk about the direct process also. So, what is the purport? To the impersonalist, achieving the Brahma Bhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute, is the last word. Right? That's the Mayavad. But for the personalist or pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahma Bhuta. So, pure devotee is already means that person doesn't need to go through all the thing, right? That will happen. The Krishna is going to take care of uh, purifying him and taking him to the Brahma Bhuta directly. Oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute one cannot render service unto him. So without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. So this is the analogy we have talked about. Then to serve the king, one has to start living in the palace. And then even to his personal quarters, then only one can serve the king. So to serve the Supreme Lord, one has to be in the spiritual realm, then one can really serve the Supreme Lord. Okay? So the practices which we are doing is called sadhana bhakti. Um, it's not the bhakti of the devotee of the Vaikuntha, right? The five different rasas we talked about: Santa, Dasya, um, uh, Santya, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Right? We are in the sadhana bhakti realm, and these topics will cover a lot more in the bhakti book, which we will read, Nectar of Devotion or Bhakti Rasa Mitra Sindhu. Um, but in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is touching all these topics. So in the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he's naturally always joyful. So when one is always completely focused on Krishna, right? So then the misery goes away. And see what is now tell me one practical point. We are telling that even a devotee they will get the misery. How the person, how this statement can be true then, right? If the person is practicing and they are getting misery, how they can be joyful?
Maybe just thinking like, this may be some karma which I need to, s-
But see, now the devotee know that this is when the things which are acting, this is not karma, right? So otherwise, I'm not even trusting the words of Shastras, which has been given by Krishna, correct? What else?
So probably because of practicing the devotional service, so he might be getting less miseries than more he has to suffer. And also you should set an example to others that these miseries should come everyone, but we should not get what you can say. So what I mean to say is instead of getting bigger one, they can get only small small ones because of the devotional service.
That's true. That's true. There's one of the way to distinguish. I don't know whether if I have ever talked about this. One way to distinguish. So, like, if one asks how to know what is the difference between the material misery and the spiritual misery. Have I talked about this? Difference between the material misery and the spiritual misery through the symptoms.
I didn't remember totally.
Anybody else remembers? Have I talked?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Prabhuji.
So
So, so,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Prabhuji.
so one, I think definitely we didn't talk about that, but one thing you talked about, or maybe like where, like when you are going on the devotional path, right? Like if you are not on devotional path, your karma will act, right? Your karma, or you're building your karma. But when you're on spiritual path, like even sometime Maya or Krishna gives you like those kind of situations, right? To either evaluate you or test you. This is what maybe on this note or maybe related. I just wanted to call it out, Prabhuji. So like
Yeah, yeah, Prabhu.
devotee knows, right? Like if we know maybe it's my karma or it's like Krishna is testing me, and then they will just continue on that if they are already transcendental.
Right. So so what you said is a related topic. Yes, those things we have talked about, and you are right, Prabhuji. Um, so one of there are a few symptoms. One symptoms is the kind of misery once get through the material karma portion is really bad. Is really bad. It's very harsh. While the misery one experiences through the spiritual thing, which is Krishna, given by the Krishna, right? So Maya Devi is not acting. Krishna is directly taken the control of that, right? Just like a mother scolding the child, right? So that's the kind of thing. Those are not very severe, right? So it will the misery only last until the person has corrected themselves. In the case of the karma, doesn't matter whether the person is corrected or not. If I have to get all the bad karma, all these things needs to come to me, right? So I'll start getting one after the other, one after the other. But in the case of the Krishna, if I'm getting Krishna is giving the misery, and that is for my purification, and I'm realizing that instead of blaming the other people, I am taking control of that situation, then the misery will the condition which Krishna is giving for the misery will stop. Okay, so that's one differentiation. The other differentiation is in the case of the material karma, the action and reaction cycle will continue. You'll see that, oh, one gets the bad karma, we invariably out of control, or maybe by due to our psychophysical nature, will keep making the mistake. Let's say I'm having a bad hair day with my boss, right, at work. And then I know that, I should control my anger. I shouldn't talk in the, but I just, for whatever situation, I'll get mad and outburst, right? So I made the bad condition even worse, right? And then to control it, now I'm going to send a email. Immediately, I go and write an email to my skip manager. Now it becomes even worse, right? So see how these things are becoming. Now, in the case of the other one, let's say it is given by Krishna. In the case of, okay, so bad situation, I think that with my manager, I think, Krishna is giving me indication that I have to learn to tolerate. If manager has, let's say, just given some tough feedback, rather than just pointing finger, oh, that's not correct, let me reflect. Maybe I have something. Maybe there's something. Even it's not there, okay, what's wrong? Means my manager is wrong, and he or she said that. That's fine. I'll just tolerate and see how it goes, and I'll continue with my good work. And once that happens, see, I'm not doing action reaction, right? I'm just trying to tolerate. And once that stops, you see that situation starts improving automatically. And why? Because Krishna, it was given by the Krishna. Krishna controlled it. Krishna saw that I rectified my false ego, because most of the things were happening due to my false ego. I was thinking that I'm a superstar, right? But Krishna showed that you are not the superstar. It was just the modes which were just making it good for the before, and now the modes are just showing that even though I'm the same person, the results are not going in the same direction, and that's the manager thing that I'm not working or whatever, right? So this is just a very simple example. I'm trying to show you that how these things can be understood. um, so now coming to, even for the my original question, even if somebody got the small misery, how that person can be joyful? Now tell me how that person can be joyful.
Now, joyful, yes, Prabhuji, definition like because he's serving Krishna already, he's chanting. I think he's already satisfied with that, and then that is giving me sufficient joy that he just like detached or like from his body, all his surrounding, maybe that path, Prabhuji. Just trying my best, I guess.
No, Prabhu, you're on the right path actually, Prabhu. So see, first of all, here what it says, pure devotee. So who is joyful? Pure devotee. We are, if we look into our situation, because we are not pure, we have so much of anarthas. When the misery comes, it will be painful. But as we are making progress, when we are realizing that these things are given by Krishna and He is our father and the mother, right? And I'm doing like what I will focus on my sadhana, and these things are given by Krishna. So I will try to learn what it is. So I keep focusing. I'm not despising, oh, what this happened. So I'm not just contemplating too much on the situation. Rather, I'm trying to focus on the positive side. So even though initially I feel the misery, but very fast that misery will start becoming a learning session for me. And then slowly, as I progress, more and more, those learning sessions, when they come, I'll see, oh wow, see, Krishna has again given me a test. Let me act which will delight Krishna. So I'm more joyful. Like, see, the student, and this is the example I remember from my student days. Whenever I'm well prepared for my exam, I will be looking forward to the exam, right? For example, I was good in math, so I was looking forward to the math exam, because I'll see that, okay, I'll just go and ace it, and then I feel very satisfied. But all this, maybe English, I was really bad in English, so in that case, I will be like, it's very difficult subject, right, for me, because I know that I'll make so many grammatical mistakes and everything. So that will always be the sense of misery for me. So similarly, if I am well prepared, I know this is the exams given by Krishna, then it won't be misery for me. I will rejoice in that. I am well prepared for that, Krishna. Uh, Let me learn from it, and that will lead to a joyful experience. Does it make sense, Prabhu, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay, so next, moving ahead. So he does not see in the material world someone as the higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower position are ephemeral. Ephemeral. Does anybody knows what is the meaning of ephemeral? Ephemer,
Fleeting,
ephemeral. Pardon
fleeting,
me?
transient,
Sorry?
transient, fleeting,
Transient.
not
Yes,
permanent.
yes, yes. Not permanent. It's very, very short, short-lived. So in our life, we think, that, oh, these things are, I am going through the misery for the last 2 months. But this is like a very transit in the big scheme of things. Okay? For him, stone and gold are of equal value. This is the Brahman Bhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. The idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. So this is why, like, so even Brahma Bhuta stage, oh, I want to become one with the Brahman. The devotee doesn't like that because devotee what rejoice? Devotee rejoice interaction with the Lord, personal interaction with the Lord. That's what the devotee aspire for, right? The devotee wants to serve the Lord. He wants to see the reciprocation of the Lord. So that's the reason becoming one where there is no action is just very is a hellish condition for the devotee. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantas- phantasmagoria, right? So that is again the dream one doesn't want to live on. The world is a miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha. So this is the purity of the bhakti which Prabhupada is talking, and this is something which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught, right? So Prabhupada is bringing that purity of the bhakti here, because you'll see in the further verses, Krishna does talk about it, not directly like this, but this is the meaning of it. That what devotee really wants to serve the Lord, and in that for that devotee is telling that even that I don't want any liberation, anything like that. Just I want to serve you, even if that means going to the lower planet and serving you. I am willing to go and do that. That's what devotee wants. Okay? The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. So, last verse for today. Again, a very nice verse and popular verse. Bhaktya mam abhijanati
Bhaktyamam
Bhakti-ānāṁ
abhijanati
abhijanati
yavan yaschasmi tatvatah
yavan
yavan
yasya
tat-
chat
tato mam tatvato gnatva
tato mam
tato
tat
mātmātmātmātmā
visheta tad anantat anat sorry viseta tad anantaram.
tishati
Anantaram.
One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. Again, reading. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. If we really want to understand the Lord, we can only understand Him only by devotional service. And when one is in full conscious of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So, look from the very practical perspective. To know anybody, what we need to do? Do you want to, uh, let's say, once upon a time, you were not married, and let's say you liked your wife or your husband, and if it's not arranged marriage, I'm just trying to pick an example, and you know your wife or husband, and you wanted to just know your know him or her, how you approached, how you would have approached.
trying to please them, Prabhuji.
Yeah, first is try to develop the relationship, right? If I want to know you, Mataji, I have to develop the relationship. I need to know what Mataji likes. Okay, um, I have to serve her, maybe whatever, right? So that's how. So now I have to develop the relationship. I get to know you. I have to invite you. I have to spend time with you. Now, once I do that, then you will become happy. They'll say, okay, and then slowly, then you will tell me about your nature. oh, don't do this, Prabhu. This is not something I like. Okay, or Prabhu, if you really, I think these are things which will be, which will please me. Then those are the things. So that's exactly what the Krishna consciousness is. We want to develop the relationship with the Lord, and to do that, we are doing devotional service, right? So our sadhana bhakti is practicing devotion. It's like we are playing with the toy kitchen, right? We are making the food, offering to the Lord with whatever the best inclination possible, right? We are not pure, but we are doing that. Lord, as a father and a mother, saying, "Oh, my child, okay, you are giving." It's not a real food which the Lord can eat because it's so impure. But to please, He is accepting it, taking it just like we used to take it from our kid if they're coming with the love and affection, right? Giving it back, right? So all those things is helping us develop the relationship with the Lord. And then as we are developing relationship with the Lord is telling us more about Himself. So that's the revelation happens in our heart. Okay, and when that revelation happens, then we become pure, and then when we become pure, then we can enter into the Lord's home. Okay, that's what this verse is was talking about. That's it. So further here, so Prabhupada brings the 7.25. He says he's not revealed to anyone. So, so Lord is not that, oh, he will go and reveal. People say, show me the Lord. And he's not, Lord is not going to show it to everybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry. He will only reveal to whom? Someone who has a relationship with the Lord, who has the inclination to know the Lord, who is working hard to know the Lord. And to those people only, the Lord is going to reveal. Okay. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degree are not helpful. So me becoming a PhD in the theology and learning all the religion of the world is not going to help me. Me learning the Sanskrit and becoming a Sanskrit Pandit is not going to help me. What is going to help me is the sincerity of serving the Lord. So becoming Brahman does not mean that one loses his identity. Devotional service is there, and as long as devotional service exists, there must be God, the devotee, and the process of devotional service. So whenever there is a Krishna talks about devotional service, it means that there is a two different entity, right? This we have talked about as a refutation of the Mayavad philosophy. That whenever the Krishna is talking about devotional service, there is two entity: the, the one who is being served and the person who is serving. This means that the individual individuality is there. It's not that they are becoming one. They are one becoming qualitatively, right? They are becoming um, one is entering into a spiritual realm. So qualitatively they are becoming one, but they are two individuals. So such knowledge is never vanquished. After attainment of the Brahma Bhuta stage of freedom from material conception, devotional service begins by one's hearing about the Lord. So initially, when we are hearing with distraction, with our anarthas, and we are not getting the real message. So we continue hearing. So Bhagavatam, we are hearing, we are studying. But as we are getting pure, we are developing with more inclination to hear Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, right? And that will, because now I'm hearing it from the spiritual platform, more purified platform. That's the reason Parikshit Maharaj or anyone, right? Or the sages of the Naimisharanya, they wanted to hear more and more and more about the Lord, right? So that's where the more realization of the Lord's happens. After liberation, the process of bhakti or transcendental service continues. So again, it's not that after liberation for the devotee everything ends. We say the bhakti is the means and even the end. So right now, whatever we are doing as a means, that we will continue doing once we are even purified and we are in the Vaikuntha planet and serving the Lord. So there also what we are doing, serving the Lord. For example, all the all the people in Vaikuntha, right? They look like Vishnu. They all have a wife and a husband. So, but they are not focusing on the sense enjoyment. Together, they are serving the Lord. Okay, so that in the bhakti continues. And for that, Prabhupada is giving the reference Vedanta Sutra. This means that after liberation, the process of devotional service continues. So Prabhupada further gives, and Vedanta Sutra is considered to be the ultimate, right? Even for the Vedantist, right? Who focus only on the Upanishad. They consider the the smriti to be lower. Even for there, it's written directly. Okay? So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, real devotional liberation is defined as the reinstatement of the living entity in his own identity, his own constitutional position. The constitutional position is already explained. Every living entity is a part and parcel, fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his constitutional position is to serve. After liberation, this service is never stopped. Actual liberation is getting free from the misconception of life. Okay, so what is the actual liberation? Getting free from the misconception of life. So this is not contradictory when somebody that say that, hey, you will sometime our Acharya or Prabhupada say that you will get liberated in this world. What does it really mean? I'm getting liberated? I'm not even my ultimately my body has to go away, right? It has to enter into the spiritual world. What do you mean? The misconception of life. Once somebody starts seeing the world in the pure stage, the way the Lord sees it, that misconception has gone away. So automatically, the misery of this world will not exist, and one will always be rejoicing and joyful and full of bliss, right? So that itself is a liberation, and of course, that is just liberation, and then leaving the body and all those things just the formality, right? One has already been liberated. Okay, so that's what this last sentence mean and why it is so meaningful. Okay, so question, thoughts, reflection, anything? If not, you all are very quiet. So if not, we will end the class. So we covered the Brahman platform. Next two sections, pure bhakti, 56 to 66. These are will will just rejoice in that. Um, so like more confidential, most confidential, all those things will happen, and then the conclusion 67 to 78. Okay, so hopefully no more than 2 to 3 sessions we will conclude Bhagavad Gita. Next week there won't be class. I will be I'm going to Sadhu Sangha. So I'll be focusing there. Pray for me that I make good use of the Sadhu Sangha. A lot of elevated devotees, Maharajas, sannyāsīs are coming, Prabhupada disciples, and there will be 20, like all time, there will be like 12-hour kirtan. So we always go, mostly, not always, mostly go. It has been a good experience all the time. It helped us. So just pray for me that I make good use of it. And then we will be back uh, 3rd of Yeah, so a lot of devotees are coming next month also. We will see. I'll try that somehow or the other if we can continue and finish the class in June, because I know then some of you will start taking vacation and going to India and all those stuff. I would love to conclude Bhagavad Gita before that if possible. But then it is all the will of the Lord. We'll see. Okay, with that, let's end the class. You all have a wonderful week and day ahead.